Ambassador Zilvax of the Galactic Concord stared at the humans with growing confusion. This was the fifth meeting this week, and once again, the entire human delegation had positioned themselves at the very back of the grand meeting hall. Even when offered seats of honor near the front, they politely refused. Most curious, Zilvax whispered to his aide, a small purple-skinned being named Trill. "Do they not understand the honor we offer them?" Trill's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Perhaps it is some cultural ritual we do not yet comprehend. The human ambassador Peter Collins stood with perfect posture against the back wall of the chamber. His aide, Lisa Morgan, stood beside him, datapad in hand, her eyes constantly scanning the room. The other members of the human delegation, 6 men and women representing Earth's various regions, had arranged themselves similarly along the back wall, leaving the prime seating empty. This behavior had been consistent since the first contact 3 months ago. The humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, having only recently developed faster-than-light travel. The Galactic Concord, a union of 17 spacefaring species, had welcomed them warmly. Yet this peculiar behavior remained unexplained. When the meeting ended, Zilvax approached Collins directly. The human was tall by galactic standards, though not remarkably so. "Ambassador Collins, I must inquire again about your positioning preference. The front seats are the most comfortable and offer the best view of the presentations, yet your people consistently choose to stand at the back. Is this a cultural requirement I should be aware of?" Collins smiled. It was a human expression Zilvax had studied, but still found slightly unsettling, the baring of teeth that somehow indicated friendliness rather than aggression. "It's just more comfortable for us back here, Ambassador. Nothing to worry about." Comfortable. Standing for 3 hours is more comfortable than sitting in our ergonomic chairs. Zilvax's cranial ridge flushed blue with confusion. Lisa Morgan stepped in smoothly. "What the ambassador means is that we feel more at ease observing the whole room. It's not meant as any disrespect." Zilvax noticed how her eyes never stopped moving, taking in every detail of their surroundings. In fact, all the humans seemed to do this, constantly watching, assessing. Later that evening, Zilvax called an emergency meeting of the Concord's Cultural Integration Committee. The humans display consistent behavioral patterns that defy standard diplomatic protocols, he explained to the gathered representatives. They reject honored positions, preferring instead to position themselves at room peripheries with solid structures behind them. The Naxtol representative, a crystalline being who communicated through light pulses, flashed rapidly. "In our culture, taking the back position is a sign of submission or servitude. Perhaps humans are showing deference." "Unlikely," countered the reptilian Kiss diplomat. "Their body language shows no signs of submission. If anything, they appear more alert and confident than most species during first contact." The behavioral scientist, Mel Torin, stroked her long whiskers thoughtfully. "I've been analyzing the security footage from all our interactions. The humans consistently place themselves in positions that offer maximum visual coverage of any space they enter. They prefer corners and walls to open areas. When seated, they choose chairs that face entryways." "A security concern," someone suggested. "Perhaps, but why would a newly contacted species harbor such deep suspicions? We've shown them nothing but welcome," Zilvax said. As the committee debated, footage of the day's meeting played on the large screen. In it, the human delegation stood calmly at the back of the room, their eyes constantly moving, bodies relaxed but somehow ready. None of the aliens present could decode this mysterious behavior. "We need more data," Zilvax concluded. "Continue all scheduled interactions, but pay close attention to their positioning choices in different environments. There must be a logical explanation for why humans sit at the back." Little did they know, the answer would eventually reshape galactic understanding of human psychology and evolutionary history, and change interspecies protocols forever. 5 years had passed since first contact. Humans were no longer a novelty in the galaxy, but had become familiar figures in space stations, trading posts, and diplomatic centers across the galactic concord. Yet the mystery of their positioning habits had only deepened with time. Sam Lawson, a human merchant captain, guided his ship into dock at Centauri Hub, the busiest trading post in this sector of space. His vessel, the Wandering Star, carried rare Earth spices that fetched high prices among the galaxy's wealthy elite. "Docking complete, Captain," said his pilot, a green-skinned Viridi named Klex. "Thanks. Let's head to the trading floor and see what kind of deals we can make today," Sam replied, already moving toward the exit. As they entered the massive trading floor of Centauri Hub, Sam automatically scanned the room. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species haggled, argued, and negotiated at various booths and tables. Without thinking, Sam made his way to the back corner of the vast chamber, where he could see the entire room and had a wall behind him. Klex had worked with humans long enough to expect this. "Back corner again, Captain." Sam shrugged. Best spot to see potential buyers approaching. Across the galaxy, on the research station orbiting Proxima Centauri, Dr. Kate Rodriguez was giving a presentation on Earth's unique biodiversity to a group of alien scientists. Despite being the speaker, she had arranged the room so she could deliver her talk from a position where her back was near a wall, facing the door. One of the attending scientists, Dr. Earl Tavik, a leading xenologist, made careful notes, not about Earth's biodiversity, but about Dr. Rodriguez's positioning choices. The behavior of humans had become a popular research topic among galactic sociologists and behavioral scientists. Everywhere humans went, they displayed the same tendencies. They preferred seats at the back of transport shuttles, chose tables against walls in dining establishments, and consistently positioned themselves to view entryways and exits. At the Central Galactic University on Proxima IV, a special conference had been organized specifically to discuss this phenomenon. "The consistency is remarkable," noted Dr. Iltavik as he presented his findings to the packed auditorium. "In my 3 years studying human behavioral patterns, I have documented over 5,000 instances of positioning behavior across 324 human subjects. The pattern never varies beyond a statistically insignificant margin." Slides displayed behind him showed humans in various settings, all exhibiting the same tendency to position themselves with clear sightlines and protected backs. "Several theories have been proposed," he continued. "Some suggest it is merely cultural, perhaps related to their educational systems, where learning was traditionally conducted with students facing a single instructor, a blue tentacle being raised in appendage. But that wouldn't explain the preference for wall backing in social settings." "Precisely," Dr. Iltavik agreed. "Others suggest it may be physiological. Perhaps humans have poorer peripheral vision than we initially thought, and maximizing their forward field of view is compensatory behavior." In the back of the auditorium, 2 humans from the Galactic Diplomatic Corps sat quietly observing. They had been sent to monitor the conference, as human behavior was becoming a topic of increasing interest across the Concord. "Should we tell them?" whispered Frank Adams to his colleague, Heather Winters. "Tell them what?" she replied, eyes constantly scanning the room even as they talked. "You know, the real reason we like to sit at the back." Heather smiled slightly. "They'll figure it out eventually. Besides, I'm curious to see what theories they come up with next." As the conference continued, various experts proposed increasingly complex explanations for the human positioning mystery. None came close to the simple truth that was second nature to every human in the galaxy. Meanwhile, on 17 different worlds and 42 space stations, the humans continued their habit: backs to walls, eyes watchful, a behavior so ingrained in their species that most didn't even realize they were doing it. A behavior that would soon prove to be far more significant than anyone in the galaxy had yet imagined. Proxima Station hung in space like a glittering jewel, its rotating rings catching the light of the nearby star. As one of the busiest diplomatic hubs in the galactic concord, it regularly hosted representatives from all 17 member species, plus dozens of non-member observers. Tonight was the annual Galactic Unity Celebration, a grand event meant to foster cooperation and understanding among the diverse species of the known universe. The main reception hall was packed with beings of all shapes, sizes, and colors. Floating light orbs cast a warm glow over the gathering, and servers moved through the crowd with trays of food and drink suited to various biological needs. John Blackwell, a human cargo pilot who had been granted shore leave to coincide with the celebration, stood with his back against the far wall of the room. From his position, he could see all 5 entrances to the hall and most of the gathered crowd. Beside him stood Olivia Grant, a human cultural attaché assigned to the station. They were making small talk about Earth sports when John's eyes narrowed slightly. "Did you see that?" he asked, his voice dropping. Olivia didn't turn her head, but shifted her gaze to where John was looking. The lights in the east section just flickered. "Third time in 5 minutes," John said. His posture had changed subtly, becoming more alert. The maintenance chief mentioned they'd been having power regulation issues in this sector last week, but said it was fixed. On the other side of the room, Ambassador Zilvax was deep in conversation with a group of high-ranking diplomats. None of them noticed the slight dimming of the lights, nor the 2 humans who had suddenly become very attentive to something seemingly trivial. John pushed himself away from the wall. "I'm going to find the station's duty officer." Before he could take more than 2 steps, the lights throughout the hall flickered again, more dramatically this time. Then, with a loud snap that made several species with sensitive hearing cry out in pain, the entire reception hall plunged into darkness. Chaos erupted immediately. Some species could see perfectly well in the dark, but many were completely blind. Beams crashed into each other, some fell, and panic began to spread through the crowd. "Stay calm." Olivia's voice cut through the noise. She had already pulled out a small light from her pocket and activated it. "Everyone stay where you are to avoid injuries." In the pitch darkness, John was already moving. He had mentally mapped the locations of the emergency panels earlier when he'd entered the room, a habit he'd never really thought about. He made his way unerringly to the nearest panel, pulled the emergency handle, and activated the backup lighting system. Dim red emergency lights came on, providing just enough illumination for most species to see, but the damage had already been done. In the 30 seconds of darkness, several diplomats had fallen or been knocked down. An elderly Trill ambassador had been trampled in the panic and lay on the floor, his breathing labored. As medical teams rushed in, security footage would later reveal something remarkable. John Blackwell had begun moving toward the emergency panel 3 seconds before the lights went out. Olivia Grant had reached for her light, a full 2 seconds before darkness fell. Neither human had been looking directly at the main power conduits when they failed, yet both had reacted as if they had anticipated the failure moments before it occurred. When order was restored, the station's security chief, Commander Valfek, reviewed the footage with growing interest. The humans' reaction time could not be explained by mere coincidence. More interesting still, both humans had been positioned at the back of the room, facing outward, a position that had allowed them to notice the subtle changes in lighting that everyone else had missed. For the first time, the Galactic Security Council began to take serious interest in the human positioning preference. Valfek submitted a formal report that night, marking it high priority. The seemingly odd human habit of sitting at the back was about to become a matter of galactic security. The report from Proxima Station quickly made its way through the upper levels of the Galactic Concord. Kretor, the leading military analyst for the Concord Defense Force, reviewed the footage from the Unity celebration a dozen times. Each viewing only deepened his interest in the human positioning behavior. He sat in his private office aboard the military station Vigilance, surrounded by screens displaying data on human behavior patterns. After the incident, he had requested access to all security footage involving humans across Concord space. The patterns were striking. Computer, play file Earth Embassy reception, timestamp 3.42, he commanded. The screen showed a human Marine captain named Alan Pierce entering a crowded reception. Without hesitation, Pierce moved through the crowd until he reached a position that placed his back near a wall, with clear sightlines to all entrances. He stayed there for the entire event. Computer, next file. The new footage showed Navy strategist Diane Flores in a different setting, a small conference room. She chose a seat that allowed her to see the door, shifting her chair slightly to improve her view. File after file showed the same behavior. Humans in social settings, diplomatic meetings, recreational facilities, dining halls, all consistently positioned themselves with their backs protected and clear views of entrances and exits. More interestingly, they appeared to do this without conscious thought, often continuing conversations without missing a beat as they maneuvered into their preferred positions. When questioned directly about their positioning choices, humans gave vague explanations. "It feels comfortable," they would say, or "just force of habit." Some claimed they had never noticed they did it at all. Creator was convinced there was more to it. He prepared a briefing for the Galactic Council. Distinguished members of the Council, he began, addressing the holographic projections of the 17 species representatives. "I believe the human positioning behavior has significant military implications. The Naxtal representative's crystalline form, pulsed with blue light. Explain. After analyzing thousands of instances across hundreds of settings, I have developed a theory. Humans position themselves strategically due to an evolutionary predator response." Creator displayed various images of humans in different settings, highlighting their positioning. They consistently choose positions offering maximum situational awareness. "Are you suggesting humans evolved as predators?" asked the Verity representative, her green skin flushing darker with concern. "Not exactly," Creator replied. "I believe they evolved as both predator and prey. Their world is unusually dangerous by galactic standards. They developed these habits as survival mechanisms." The human representative, Ambassador William Carter, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He had chosen a position at the back of the council chamber. Creator noted with interest. "What are the implications?" asked Zilvax, who had been following the human mystery since first contact. "Several," Creator said, bringing up new data on the main screen. "First, humans appear to have enhanced threat perception. The Proxima Station incident demonstrated this clearly. They detected the power fluctuations before anyone else and reacted before the actual failure." He paused to let this sink in. "Second, this behavior suggests humans are constantly in a state of readiness that other species achieve only with specific training. Their default state includes continuous assessment of their surroundings." Ambassador Carter cleared his throat. "With respect, Analyst Creator, I think you're making too much of a simple habit." Creator turned to face the human directly. "Then perhaps you could explain, Ambassador, why you chose that specific seat today. Why you always choose a similar position in this chamber." Carter opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. He genuinely didn't have an explanation he could articulate. "I believe," Creator continued, addressing the full council again, "that this behavior gives humans a significant tactical advantage in potential conflict situations. They're already positioned defensively before a threat emerges. Their reaction times are superior because they're already prepared." The council chamber fell silent as the representatives considered the implications. What had seemed like a curious cultural quirk now looked like something far more significant, perhaps even something that might require a reassessment of humanity's place in the galactic power structure. After the Galactic Council meeting, there was a growing sense of unease about human behavior. Some species began to view humans with suspicion. Others wanted to learn more. The council decided that a formal scientific study was needed. Dr. Kellen Tor, the most respected xenobiologist in the Concord, was chosen to lead the research project. She had studied 12 different sentient species over her long career, but humans fascinated her the most. "We need human volunteers who will let us study them in detail," she told her research team. and we need their full cooperation and honesty. The Earth government, eager to dispel growing concerns about human intentions, encouraged participation. Researcher Daniel White and virologist Susan Baker were among the first to volunteer. Both had worked with alien species before and were comfortable with the idea of being studied. The research facility on Centauri Prime was equipped with the most advanced technology available. Daniel sat in a chamber designed to monitor every aspect of his physiology. Sensors tracked his eye movements, brain activity, muscle tension, and dozens of other biological markers. "We'll be running a series of simulations," Dr. Kalentor explained through the speaker. "Just react naturally." The first simulation was simple, a virtual reality recreation of a busy spaceport terminal. As Daniel entered the virtual space, sensors recorded his movements. "Fascinating," Dr. Kalentor muttered as she watched the data stream in. Without any prompting, Daniel had automatically scanned the room in a specific pattern and moved toward a position that gave him maximum visibility. Next door, Susan was undergoing different tests. She wore a lightweight cap that monitored her brain activity while she performed simple tasks in various environments. The patterns were consistent. Her brain showed heightened activity in regions associated with spatial awareness and threat assessment, even in completely safe settings. After weeks of tests, Dr. Kalentor's team made a breakthrough. They discovered that humans possess a heightened subconscious threat assessment capacity. Their brains constantly calculate escape routes and defensive positions without conscious awareness. "It's automatic," Susan explained when shown the results. "We don't think about it any more than you think about breathing." "But why?" asked Dr. Kalentor. "Why would your species develop such constant vigilance?" Daniel and Susan exchanged glances. "Earth is dangerous," Daniel said simply. "Throughout our evolution, we were both predator and prey. Large predators hunted us, while we hunted smaller animals. There was also competition and conflict within our own species." Susan nodded. "Our ancestors who were more aware of their surroundings, who could spot danger quickly, survived and passed on their genes. Those who weren't alert became someone else's dinner." Dr. Kalentor's team expanded their research. They studied Earth's historical records and the unusually dangerous environment humans had evolved in. Most sentient species in the Concorde had evolved as either apex predators or protected prey, not both. This dual position in the food chain had given humans a unique set of survival traits. The most surprising discovery came when the team analyzed human brain scans. Human brains were constantly creating mental maps of their surroundings, updating escape routes, and assessing potential threats. This process happened automatically, using minimal conscious resources, like background software running on a computer. "The back-to-wall positioning makes perfect sense," Dr. Kalentor explained to her team. "It eliminates one entire direction from which threats might approach. It maximizes the field of vision. It often provides an escape route." The research expanded to include children. Even human toddlers showed the beginnings of these behaviors, confirming they were innate rather than learned. After 6 months of intensive study, Dr. Kalentor prepared her final report. The findings would soon change how the entire galaxy viewed humans. The mysterious habit wasn't rudeness or cultural oddity. It was a glimpse into the unique evolutionary path that had shaped humanity, a path that had unknowingly prepared them for the dangers of space long before they ever left their planet. The day Dr. Kalentor's research was published, it spread across the galaxy faster than a quantum transmission. Every news outlet, scientific journal, and social media platform buzzed with the findings. The mystery of why humans sat at the back had finally been solved, and the answer was more fascinating than anyone had imagined. At the Central Galactic University, the main auditorium was packed beyond capacity. Scientists, diplomats, military officials, and curious citizens from dozens of species had gathered to hear Dr. Kalentor present her findings in person. Humans were scattered throughout the audience, and many now noticed with fresh eyes how they had indeed chosen positions with good visibility and protected backs. Dr. Kalentor stepped onto the stage. her forearms holding different research tools as her voice projection membranes expanded slightly. "Today, we share a breakthrough in understanding our human friends," she began. "Humans aren't being deliberately mysterious or rude when they position themselves at the backs of rooms. They're exhibiting an instinctual behavior that kept their ancestors alive for countless generations." She displayed brain scan comparisons between humans and other species. The human brain showed constant activity in regions dedicated to spatial awareness and threat assessment, even during rest periods. "What we consider a social choice is actually a deeply ingrained survival mechanism in humans," she explained. "The back-against-the-wall positioning allows for maximum visual coverage and minimum vulnerability. Their brains are constantly creating and updating mental maps of their surroundings, identifying potential threats and escape routes. This happens unconsciously, using minimal mental resources." In the audience, many aliens turned to look at their human companions with new understanding. Some humans shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware of behaviors they had never thought to explain. Ambassador Peter Collins, who had puzzled Zilvax years ago at the first contact meeting, was present in the front row. A deliberate choice to show support for the research. He smiled as Dr. Kalantor continued. "Humans evolved on a world with many large predators. Unlike most sentient species, they were neither the top predator nor specialized prey. They occupied an unusual middle position in their planet's food chain. This dual evolutionary pressure created a species with both predatory instincts and prey awareness." Footage played on the large screen, lions stalking ancient human ancestors on the African savanna, early humans hunting in coordinated groups, tribal conflicts between different human populations. The audience watched in fascination as the story of human evolution unfolded. Most sentient species evolved either as apex predators, like the Drax, or as specialized prey with specific defense mechanisms, like the Naxtul. Dr. Kalantor explained. "Humans are rare in having evolved under both pressures simultaneously." After the presentation, the audience erupted with questions. Many wanted to know if humans were constantly afraid, living in a state of anxiety. "Not at all," Susan Baker explained, joining Dr. Kalantor on stage. "It's like breathing or blinking. We don't think about it. It doesn't cause stress because it's automatic." "It's not fear," Daniel White added. "It's awareness. The difference is important." As the presentation concluded, the impact was immediate. The suspicion that had begun to grow around humans dissipated, replaced by a new respect. What had seemed potentially threatening was now understood as a fascinating evolutionary adaptation. The galaxy had been misinterpreting human behavior through the lens of their own evolutionary experiences. That evening, at receptions across the galaxy, aliens watched with new understanding as their human colleagues automatically chose positions against walls or in corners. Some even asked polite questions about it, leading to deeper cultural exchanges than had previously been possible. The mystery had been solved, and instead of creating division, the truth had fostered greater understanding between species. Humans weren't being rude or suspicious. They were simply being human. And for the first time, the galaxy truly understood what that meant. In the months following Dr. Kalantor's revelations, human security experts found themselves in high demand across the galaxy. What had once been viewed as an odd human quirk was now recognized as a valuable evolutionary advantage with practical applications for all species. Paul Winters had served 20 years in Earth's Special Forces before becoming a private security consultant. Now, as he stood in the Central Command Center of the Galactic Defense Forces flagship, he watched with satisfaction as alien officers practiced the positioning techniques he had taught them. "Always maintain awareness of all entry points," he instructed as the officers moved around the room. "Don't focus so hard on one task that you lose track of your surroundings." Admiral Kivnak, the highest-ranking officer in the Galactic Defense Force, observed from the side. "It's remarkable," he commented to his aide. "These techniques are so simple, yet they've already improved our response times by 18%. Paul nodded. "On Earth, we have a saying, 'Simple works.' These aren't complex strategies. They're basic survival instincts that humans have refined over thousands of years. Across the galaxy on Proxima Station, security consultant Nicole Summers was redesigning the station's emergency response protocols. The station manager, a tall insectoid named Tribzek, followed her as she inspected various areas. Your current security team positions themselves where they can be easily seen, Nicole explained. That makes them targets in a crisis. They should position themselves where they can see without being obvious. She demonstrated, moving to a spot where she could observe 3 corridors at once, while remaining partially concealed. From here, you see everything but aren't immediately visible to someone entering. Tribzek's antennae twitched with interest. This is why humans were always so hard to find during station-wide security drills. You naturally choose optimal surveillance positions. Nicole smiled. We don't even think about it. It's just what feels right to us. The Galactic Defense Force began incorporating human security techniques into their standard training. Threat assessment, situational awareness, and strategic positioning became core skills taught to officers of all species. Some found it easier than others. Predator species adapted quickly, while hive-minded species struggled with the concept of individual awareness. Military strategists studied human battle tactics with new interest. The human approach to combat, a mixture of predatory aggression and prey caution, was unlike anything in the Concorde's military history. Simulation exercises showed that units trained with human techniques performed better in unpredictable situations. On Earth, the Global Security Academy saw applications to its training programs skyrocket. Aliens from across the galaxy arrived to learn from human instructors. What had once been Earth's disadvantage, evolving on a dangerous world, had become its greatest export. During a high-level briefing at Galactic Command, Kretur, who had first proposed the military implications of human positioning, presented the results of the new training programs. Security incidents across Concorde space have decreased by 23%, he reported proudly. Response times have improved by an average of 15% across all species. The human approach to security has proven more effective than our previous models. The Supreme Commander of the Galactic Defense Force, a massive reptilian named Draxforn, nodded his armored head. When humans first joined the Concorde, many questioned what they could contribute. Their world is small, their technology was behind ours, and their physical capabilities seemed unremarkable compared to many species. He looked around the room, his gaze lingering on the humans present. We now understand that their greatest strength was invisible to us, literally in how they see the world. They bring a perspective shaped by an evolutionary path unlike any other in the Concorde. Paul Winters stood a little straighter at these words. Human awareness, the simple habit of sitting with their backs to walls and eyes on doors, behaviors so ingrained that humans themselves rarely noticed them, had transformed galactic security protocols. What had begun as a mysterious quirk that confused alien diplomats had become one of humanity's most valuable contributions to galactic civilization. 10 years had passed since the mystery of humans sitting at the back was solved. The anniversary of first contact had arrived, and the Galactic Concorde had planned a special celebration on Earth to mark the occasion. Representatives from all 17 member species gathered in a grand hall in Geneva, the site where humans had first welcomed alien visitors a decade earlier. The hall had been redesigned with insights gained from human security awareness. Wide sight lines, multiple clearly marked exits, and strategic positioning of security personnel were now standard features in buildings across the galaxy. Architects had developed a new school of design called human perspective architecture that incorporated elements catering to the need for situational awareness. Ambassador Richard Hayes, Earth's senior diplomat to the Concorde, stood at the podium positioned at the back of the room rather than the front. This symbolic change had become common in galactic meetings, a sign of respect for the human contribution to galactic security culture. 10 years ago, we puzzled our new friends by our strange habit of positioning ourselves at the back of rooms. Hayes began, smiling at the assembled dignitaries. Today, that mystery has led to a transformation in how we all approach security and awareness. He gestured around the room. Look at us now. Representatives of every species stand against walls or in corners. Security protocols across the galaxy have incorporated human instinctive behaviors. What began as a cultural misunderstanding has become a shared strength. Zilvax, now the Supreme Counselor of the Galactic Concord, stepped forward to speak next. He had been among the first to notice the human positioning habit during those early diplomatic meetings. I remember being completely baffled by Ambassador Collins and his team always standing at the back. He said, his cranial ridge shifting to the blue color of amusement. We thought perhaps it was some religious practice or a form of subtle insult. How wrong we were. Laughter rippled through the crowd. 10 years had given everyone enough distance to find the misunderstanding humorous. The greatest gifts between species are often unexpected, Zilvax continued. We offered humans advanced technology, medical knowledge, and access to the stars. In return, humans gave us a new way of seeing the world. Literally, the human perspective has made our galaxy safer for everyone. Around the room, mixed crews who had worked together for years stood in easy companionship. Human security protocols had become standard on ships and stations throughout Concord space. More importantly, many species had adopted aspects of human awareness into their daily lives. After the speeches, the celebration moved to a more informal reception. Dr. Calentor, whose research had unlocked the mystery, chatted with Susan Baker and Daniel White, the original volunteers for her study. Did you ever imagine your sitting preferences would change galactic culture? Dr. Calentor asked them. Susan laughed. Never. I still find it amazing that something we barely noticed about ourselves has had such an impact. Daniel nodded toward a group of young aliens practicing a human-developed awareness exercise in the corner. The next generation is growing up with these skills. They're becoming second nature to species that never evolved them naturally. Beyond security applications, the human perspective had influenced many aspects of galactic society. Educational methods incorporated situational awareness training. Medical facilities were designed with human-inspired principles to reduce patient stress. Even entertainment venues have been reimagined to accommodate the desire for clear sight lines and protected positions. As the evening drew to a close, Ambassador Hayes raised a glass in a final toast. Representatives of every species in the Concord joined him, all standing with their backs to walls, eyes on the room, a position that had once been uniquely human but was now a shared galactic habit. To understanding, he said simply, may we never stop learning from each other. The mystery had been solved years ago, but its effects continued to ripple through galactic civilization. Humans had found their place among the stars not through technological superiority or military might, but through the simple, instinctive wisdom carried in their evolutionary history. The habit of sitting at the back had changed the galaxy for the better.